In the history of humanity on Earth, there have been a lot of people. People with cool ideas. Good people, bad people. Leaders that made even their own people suffer. Today in this video, we want to introduce 10 of the most evil dictators of all time. So we're gonna start at number 10, which is the least worst, and go down to the number 1 dictator, which is the worst dictator of all time. Let's go to number 10, Yakubu Gowon. He was a Nigerian dictator, and you guys already know Nigeria. It's the country with the most oil in the African continent. When he was the leader in the 60s and 70s, there was a separation in the country, and a person named Ojukwu decided to divide the nation and make a new country called Biafra. Yakubu Gowon was against this idea and told him to stop this, but Ojukwu denied and a war started. The war wasn't so important, but the most important part was that Yakubu Gowon didn't let any supplies go to Biafra, and it blocked pretty much everything going down there, and not even a piece of bread would go there. And that is why over 1 million civilians died of starvation, and 100,000 soldiers died because of this, which adds it up to 1.1 million people. And these killings puts Yakubu Gowon in the number 10th spot. Number 9, Mengistu Haile Mariam. This man decides to overthrow Haile Selassie and tries to become the leader of Ethiopia. This was a communist revolution in Ethiopia. After the empire was overthrown, the killings began. If you pass Addis Ababa, which was the capital of Ethiopia around that time, it wouldn't be a day where you wouldn't see dead bodies on the ground. Since the day Haile Mariam became the leader, he would continue killing Ethiopian people. If you were a student, you had no chance of living. Journalists, Every politician would run away from this guy. He wouldn't joke around. Anyone that said something slightly against what he says, they would get killed. Even if the person said something very little. They don't really have the exact number on how many people he killed, but the number they came up with is 1.5 million people dead, and it's all because of Haile Mariam. And that is why he's in the 9th spot with 1.5 million killings. Alright, let's go to the east. Number 8, Kim Il-sung. You should know Kim Il-sung. He's the first leader of North Korea after the Korean War. But in 1972, he officially became the president of North Korea. This guy made a country by killing people, and now you see its effects. Anyone that was against him would go to a camp, and it's not just any camp, a camp where you work to death. But they say things like this are still around in North Korea, and instead of going to prison, you go to a labor camp. He couldn't kill anymore, that's why he's in the 8th place, and the number of killings is 1.6 million people. Number 7, Pol Pot. Communism did a lot of bad things in the world, and to make Cambodia a communist nation, this guy had to kill a lot of people. This guy would not execute or shoot anybody, but he said anyone that's against this idea has to go to a farm and work to death. Anyone that got caught, they would be sent to a farm and be worked to death. They wouldn't even feed the people properly. Most of the people that died in Cambodia when he was around were mostly because of diseases or starvation. This guy killed 2.5 million of his own people. This is an insane amount. Do you know why? Because Cambodia around that time had around 13 million people, meaning Pol Pot killed 1/5 of the population of his own country. Number 6, Ismail Pasha. This guy was one of the generals of the Ottoman Empire. This guy in the Balkans War and World War I was killing a bunch of people for no reason. In 1915, this guy kills 1.2 million Armenians and 350,000 Greek, and you could say their excuse was that they blamed them for no reason. Wait, there's a lot of more killings. This guy, after killing the Armenians and Greeks, he headed towards the Anatolian Greeks, and in the years of 1916 till 1922, he killed 480,000 Anatolian Greeks. And in the end, he killed 500,000 Assyrians in the years of 1915 till 1920. You guys are good at math. When you add them all up, it adds up to 2.5 million people, which was all because of Ismail Pasha, an Ottoman general. But the Ottoman Empire was famous for killing people for no reason, like the Shia Muslims, but it wasn't because of this general. Number 5. Hideki Tojo, a Japanese general in World War II. In World War II, most of East Asia was conquered by the Japanese Empire. When this guy conquered the Chinese land, he had no mercy. He told his officers, any Chinese person that talks, kill them. There's not an exact number because so many generals killed so many people, but they say this general killed over 5 million people, which most of them were Chinese. Maybe if they had more accurate numbers, this guy would be placing a lot higher in the evil department. But now he's in the 5th place. Number 4. Leopold II of Belgium. Between the years 1865 to 1909, he was the king of Belgium. And in those years, Belgium was a strong European nation. He went to Congo and he acted like he owned the place. And he showed no mercy to the people. From the beginning, he ordered that most of the people in Congo to become slaves. And anything he says has to be done. This guy was a ruthless slave owner. He basically went over to a country and made anybody a slave. They say Leopold II killed over 15 million people, and it was all because of slavery. Number 3 is awarded to Adolf Hitler. And everybody knows this guy. And everybody knows that the people that died under his watch, what happened to them. They say he killed 6 million Jews and 1.5 million Romanians. You could say these two have exact numbers, but the rest of the people aren't exact, but he did kill a lot of other people. The Nazi regime killed anything non-Aryan. If you were a homosexual, you're dead. He killed mentally challenged people, gypsies, Russians. Conclusion, a lot of people died because of this guy, and most of them were regular people, and they were killed for no reason. And all these killings added up to 17 million people. Number 2 goes to Joseph Stalin. Anything this guy did was forced, and he had an unlimited amount of power. This guy didn't like the Ukrainians because they were against him, and that is why he killed 10 million Ukrainians. But any type of Russian you name, this guy has killed before. He only needed to know that they were against him or the Communist Party. This guy killed a lot of people, but it wasn't enough to get first place. And that is why, with 23 million kills, he sits in the number 2 spot. And he got the silver medal at being the most evil dictator. Last but not least, in number 1, the champion of the most evil dictator of all time goes to Mao Zedong. Chinese people say, even though Mao Zedong killed a lot of people, he made the country go in the right direction. But this doesn't give us a reason to not talk about how many people he killed. This guy wanted to make the entire country of China communist. A Chinese type of communist, not the Soviet type. But he had one thing in common with the Soviets, and that was ruthlessness and killing people. Since the day he started working, from 1949 to 1953, he sent 6 million people to labor camps, meaning they work until they die. Those people were either against communism or Mao, and that is why there was a lot of them. And Mao Zedong used these people. He said instead of just killing him off, make him work until they die. So at least they help the country out a little. After killing those 6 million people, Mao Zedong came up with an idea. And this idea was that China has to be the #1 exporter of steel. He told all the Chinese people to produce steel, even in your own house. He told his people that steel is like gold, so melt any type of metal you have and make steel. Regular people thought they hit a gold mine. Anything people had in their house that had metal, they would melt it. Even stuff from their own kitchen that they needed to cook food with. All this work made steel become worthless in China, and people that already couldn't afford any type of food died of starvation. And all this steel they had, nobody would buy them. 20 million Chinese easily died of starvation. 20 million people that didn't do anything wrong. They just listened to their leader. Another idea Mao had was he would gather young people and tell them to not study, go buy land and start farming. He told them you could eat yourself and feed the people. So young people that didn't study at all, had no experience in farming, he sent them to farm. Another 7 million died like this, and it was all because of starvation. You guys already know, China is the most populated country in the world, and that is why starvation was a serious thing. Mao hated people that were against him. Anybody that had any ideas against him, he would have them hunt down and would either send them to a camp or kill them. They wouldn't even talk about it either. Another painful way people died because of Mao was that he told people to bring in ideas to make China better. So people started writing to Mao. From all the idea Mao got, 500,000 people got a red flag. Why did they get a red flag? It was because, like for example, the person that wrote, "We deserve more freedom." For these people, Mao would call them dangerous thinkers, and then they would get arrested. These 500,000 people died, and when you add all these killings up, it adds up to 78 million people.